everybody, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be continuing a series that I started a very long time ago, like a year and a half ago now, that I just haven't done anything with for forever. And this was partially inspired by Zach D Productions, who I've mentioned a few times on this channel. He's a subscriber of mine. All that stuff, he makes cool videos, go check him out. He recently started doing like a music recommendation series type thing. And that kind of made me think, oh, that's something that I started doing, but I never actually continued on with it. So this is kind of a continuation of my listening to series, which is basically where I tell you guys what I've been listening to lately and recommend anything that I think is good, as well as just generally other good albums and things of that nature. So I do have 5 albums here that I'm going to be talking about. So the first one up is an album that I've already talked about fairly extensively on this channel, so I probably won't spend a whole lot of time on it. It's actually the only album out of all of these that I actually have here with me, and it is Empath by Devin Townsend. This is an album that actually came out this year. It's the only release from this year that is in this video, even though there have been a lot of albums from this year that I've listened to recently. This is one that I've been going back to a lot recently. Really, Devin Townsend in general, I've just been kind of binging on for the last few days, so I figured I had to at least talk about something by him. There's actually another album that he did, which I'll be talking about next, that I just listened to earlier today for the first time, actually. But this is a really great album if you're a fan of progressive metal, or just music, if you like metal but you just enjoy music as a whole, or any of that kind of thing. You should absolutely give this a shot. It is one of the best albums I've ever heard, to be quite honest. And there's a lot of great songs on here too. The opening track, Genesis, which, I mean, there's an intro called Castaway which leads into that. Those two songs work very well together. That's a great song. Spirits Will Collide is probably my favorite on the album. I listen to that one quite frequently. I really love that song as well. Why is a really interesting song. It's basically an orchestra and Devin's vocals, and that's it for most of the song anyways, I think, which is a very unusual combination, especially on what you would consider to be a progressive metal album, but it works really well. Singularity is the closing track. It's like 20-something minutes long. It's really good. And then I actually have the deluxe edition of the album that comes with 2 discs in it, so you got disc 1, disc 2, and the second disc is like a bunch of demos. It's like 10 demos, so it's the length of the original album. That's got a lot of good stuff on it, like The Waiting Kind, Empath, which for some reason didn't make the album, even though that's a title track. I really like Total Collapse in Summer as well, so those are all really good songs. Definitely check this album out if you have not heard it yet. I would highly recommend it if you like progressive metal, or just music in general, or metal in general, or whatever. If you have not listened to this album yet, you are seriously missing out. It is absolutely fantastic. Next album up, again, like I said, I was going to be talking about another Devin Townsend album because I've just been listening to him a lot lately. And earlier today, I actually listened to the album Ghost by the Devin Townsend Project. And I'm also actually in the process of listening to Deconstruction, and Deconstruction and Ghost were released on the same day. 2 very different style albums, with Ghost being very mellow and Deconstruction being more of like a typical like progressive metal Devin Townsend sort of thing. Since I haven't finished Deconstruction yet, I decided I would recommend Ghost. Plus, I would say at the moment I do actually prefer Ghost, even though Deconstruction is, you know, more of a typical progressive metal album. You know, it's heavier and it's more of Devin Townsend's usual style, whereas this is very mellow, very almost kind of relaxing, really not that energetic. It's like a lot of just acoustic guitars, acoustic instruments, and occasionally you'll get like some wind instruments as well. I'm not sure what exactly is used on this. I don't think it's like a flute or something, but I don't know if it's a flute. It's a really good album. I did enjoy it quite a lot. Again, it's more mellow. I went into this expecting, of course, you know, a lighter album because that's what it was supposed to be, but I wasn't expecting something like this, so it was really quite a nice surprise, and it's really good. My only real issues with it, I would say, is just some of the songs blend together very easily because, you know, there's not a whole lot of variety, although there are a couple of songs that are very different. And also, since I just listened to the album earlier today, I can't remember a ton of specific songs since I've only heard all of it once. But I really enjoyed everything on here. I liked Fly, Heart Baby, Feather, the title track Ghost I really enjoyed. I also really liked Infinite Ocean, and the bonus track Radial Highway is a very different song for the album, but it's really good. But overall, it's just a really solid album. And if you're into stuff that's maybe a little more mellow, a little bit less chaotic, and more of just something relaxing to listen to, this is a good album to check out. Next up, I've actually got an album from the 90s. In this video, for some reason, I'm not sure why exactly, I wanted to have at least one album representing each decade since the 1980s. So I've got one album from the 80s, one from the 90s, one from the 2000s, and two from the 2010s, which I just went over. This album is actually Images and Words by Dream Theater. This is an album that I listened to fairly recently, not like super recently, like a few weeks ago maybe. And I really enjoyed it. It was my first Dream Theater album aside from their newest album, which was Distance Over Time, which I enjoyed quite a bit as well. And I just was in the mood for checking out more Dream Theater, so I checked out this album, which I believe is one of their most successful albums. And again, there's quite a few good songs on here too. Pull Me Under is the opening track. That's, I believe, one of their most successful songs, one of their biggest songs. I actually really like Another Day as well. It's a very different sort of song. It's the second song on the album, and even though it comes in like 7 or 8 minutes into the album, since Pull Me Under is a pretty lengthy song, it was very jarring for me because I was not expecting something like that out of it, but it works really well. It's a really good song. Take the Time is really good as well. Metropolis Part 1, Under a Glass Moon. A lot of great songs on this album. I really enjoyed it a lot. Next up, I've got, like I said, doing an album from each decade since the 80s. I've got one from the 80s, which is Somewhere in Time by Iron Maiden. It wasn't as much when I first listened to it earlier this year, because I listened, most of what Iron Maiden I've heard, I listened to earlier this year. This has now become kind of one of my favorite Iron Maiden albums. For whatever reason, I just go back to this album quite a lot, and it's one that I enjoy quite a lot. Several great songs on here, like the first song on the album, which is sort of the title track, called Caught Somewhere in Time, is probably one of my most listened to Iron Maiden songs. I really love that song. It's the song easily that I go back to the most off this album. I just love everything about that song. It's a great song. Wasted Years is really good as well. I believe that's one of the singles. Heaven Can Wait is really good. I really enjoyed the closing track, Alexander the Great, as well. Pretty much every single other song on here is really good. And I just really enjoy this album a lot. It's got a really different sound for Iron Maiden, I think. I don't know if it's the production or just what the sound is. It sounds very different. I believe this was like the first album where they used some kind of synthesizers or anything, so that's probably what it is. It just has that very different sound from any of their other albums that I've heard, and I really like it. It's a really cool sound. I almost kind of wish that they had done more with it, but at the same time it kind of gives this album a more unique identity. So it's a really good sound. I really like it, and the album overall, a bunch of great songs. It's overall really good. And finally, for the last album on here is the one from the 2000s, and this is The Art of War by Sabaton. Now, I was trying to think of an album for the 2000s that I feel like recommending right now, because even though there's tons from the 2000s that I love, there's not much recently that I've been listening to from the 2000s, so I wasn't really sure what to recommend. But I thought, I've been listening to Sabaton, not like really recently, but like fairly recently, like within the last couple weeks or so. This is one album of theirs that I do enjoy going back to quite a lot. It's one of my personal favorite albums by Sabaton. And again, it has some of their most successful songs on it, some of my personal favorite songs of theirs on it. Again, the opening track, Ghost Division, is a fan favorite. The title track is really good. 40 to 1 is another very well-known song. That one's really good. Cliffs of Gallipoli. Union is a very... Union and The Price of a Mile, actually, which are two of the songs that close out the album. Firestorm comes after those, and that's the closing track, but Union and Price of a Mile kind of widened it down. And those, in my opinion, are very underrated songs. I really love both of those, especially Price of a Mile. That's just a song that I've always really enjoyed quite a lot. But overall, it's a really good album. It's not my favorite Sabaton album, but it is still really good. That's not really saying much, since they, in my opinion, have never released a bad album. Really good. Definitely give it a listen if you're interested in the band. This is a very good album to start out on, I think, if you've never listened to them before. So I guess that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you guys think of all of these albums that I've recommended. Are there some that you haven't listened to, or maybe intend to listen to now that you've seen me talking about them, or anything like that? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys have been into recently. I'm not sure how often I'm going to do these videos. I'm going to try to do it maybe once every 1 or 2 weeks, So either every week or every other week. I'm not sure how often that'll end up being, but I'll try to do it somewhat regularly so we don't have a giant break in between these videos like last time. But that's pretty much it for this video, so I will see you guys next time.